All right, welcome everyone. We're excited to kick off a series of live streams really focused on AI for the modern MSP. We know that a lot of MSPs are experimenting with AI, but we also know that the leaders are using it to build momentum and growth, profits, and service delivery. I'm Jim Peterson. I'm a product marketing manager on the cybersecurity tools for ConnectWise. I'm also an ex-MSP owner, so I understand some of your day-to-day struggles and love to dig into this conversation. I'm joined with Martyn Keigher from ConnectWise and Jason Jones, the one and only, of course, that everybody probably knows. But Martyn, how about you give a quick introduction for the team?
Yeah, hey everybody. Yeah, Martyn Keigher, technical marketing manager here at ConnectWise. Previously also was at an MSP, so lived that day to day for 7 years. I'm really happy to be here today, and thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, Jason.
Hey, everybody. Greetings from Microsoft Atlanta, my favorite campus as we prepare for Snowmageddon 2026 here in Atlanta. I've got several different roles, but in the context for this conversation, I kind of joke I'm the face to the MSP community. So you probably see me at a lot of events. I've been passionate about working with MSPs since 1994 and really excited for the continued partnership here with ConnectWise and excited about this conversation.
Awesome. Well, let's dig right in. Martyn, we'll kind of kick this off to you at the beginning. Yep. When we talk about MSPs using AI, that's kind of a spectrum, right? What does it really mean and how are they using it? What does it look like when the road meets the road?
Yeah, so I'm going to start this off with a spicy hot take, of course. And because you used the word most, I'm going to say most MSPs aren't using it. They are still figuring out how to use it. And by that, obviously, everybody starts with the problem, tries to find their own solution. And at the moment, it's working. It's kind of like when we were all introduced to automation at back in the day, right? With like the RMM tools of old or even new, you start with a problem, you build your solution, and then you go to a conference, you find out someone's doing it a little bit differently than you are, and you just keep expanding on that. So how they are using it, yes, they are using it, but I still feel like we are in the early days of true, like the majority of MSPs like really using it as effectively as they potentially could be doing. And it's through community conversations, podcasts like this, where hopefully they'll pick up a few breadcrumbs off the table, shall we say, as they mature in that journey. But that's my spicy hot take to start things off. I'm sorry. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, it says most MSPs say we're using AI, right? I think that was how you said it. You could say, well, most humans say we're using AI. Most students say they're using AI. Most, right? I think that's the key word, right? And again, I think it's a very self-serving where we are, right? When I speak to MSPs across the country, they'll be like, oh, yes, I use Copilot or I use ChatGPT and I ask it questions. And I kind of jokingly say in my spicy hot take, so does my 18-year-old. But they don't run an MSP, right? How are you using it, right? And that in several ways, right? Reduce your cost of sale. So how are you leveraging AI? And some are, but it's the small majority, to reduce your cost of sale, to automate tasks, to make ticket remediation a lot easier, right? And then what are you selling, right? If I'm an MSP and I'm using Copilot, that's great. What are you selling? How are you generating revenue? Or are you just making really pretty emails, right? And so I think we are still at the very beginning, but we are starting to see this divide, right, between the MSPs that are investing in training and this sort of learn it all mentality of going after the money with AI, and those that are frankly using AI the same way their end users are, right, to make their life easier, right? So I think we're starting to see that divide, and I think in a very short months or maybe a year, we will see a huge divide between the MSPs that are capitalizing on this and the other ones that are just using it. Again, just like my 18-year-old.
And just to add on to what you said there, that's actually an interesting take and something that I've heard before, and now you hear it, you can't unhear it. AI is that tool that not just the MSPs have access to, it's their clients and their clients' customers. And not everybody has an RMM. Not everybody has a PSA just lying around, but every single person has access to AI. So now you're going to get, I imagine a lot of MSPs these days now are getting a lot of requests from their customers. And because like these requests are like now more uphill than ever because everybody has access to this tool that the MSP also has.
Guys, I kind of see, again, there's probably 10 layers, but I'd throw 3 out there that kind of come to mind for most MSPs, and hitting on what you're talking about, that LLM use of AI. I use it to figure things out, whether that's searching a technical problem, solving that quickly with a little bit maybe better steps than we would have gotten in the old web search days. Or are they looking to say, well, what my tools can use in the AI front? When I think of cybersecurity, looking to really pare down that information, reduce false positives, and get to the root of the issue, investing in that side. And then there's that real big step forward, Martyn, and Jason, where they're starting to say, well, I want to be a little more autonomous than I was before my service delivery. I'm not looking to replace people. I'm looking to expand what I do and improve my response time. When you look at that autonomous side of things, the agentic piece of this adding it, how do you see those really high-end, top-tier companies that are adopting this moving forward in that world?
Ooh, that is $1 million question, isn't it? I mean, and everybody's got an opinion, right? Everybody is an AI expert these days now, I guess, including the 3 of us, because we're on a podcast, right? But when I think of autonomous service, there's 3 things of that. It's intelligence that actually matters. So like the data layer, like what it's working with, it has to have good data, garbage in, garbage out. We've all heard that. So you got to make sure that the data that the tool is going to leverage is in good standing so that you get better output. Then everybody loves, execution without escalation. I think that's the term we're using now. So what I mean by that is a very shorthand way of saying it can perform tasks that otherwise, like the level 1 or the level 2 or insert job title here, would be doing on the day-to-day. But now it's, handling the majority or getting them closer to the 80% of what it is that they do. And then the third thing, which is for everything, right? Well, I guess third and fourth thing, consistency. And then the internal communication of how that system is working for you. So I would say that an MSP, like how do you know you're scaling? I think that's going to be a case of, by how confidently you can trust what you've put in place to move that needle forward for you as you mature on that AI journey.
That's interesting. Jason, I mentioned 3, like using it as an LLM, using it in your tools, and then really getting to that agentic side. But I didn't touch on how they're helping their partners and clients really leverage it. And that's one area where Microsoft really comes in and say, hey, here's a tool that's great, can help fill in roles. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you're seeing MSPs do to help their partners.
Yeah, so I think, the strong MSPs are on the front foot, right? The weak MSPs are saying, well, my customers are using some AI tools and I just kind of let them use it, but I manage stuff when it breaks, right? The savvy MSPs are going to those end users proactively and saying, what are you using and who's downloaded what? They're approaching it more from a security conversation, right? Because rogue AI is prevalent, right? What have you downloaded today and access to what information have you given it, right? So MSPs have to be the ones to sort of sound the alarm a little bit with their customers. And there's value in that, right? You can add on additional security services. Hey, we're going to manage your AI. Oh, by the way, 7 people in your company downloaded this AI tool, which exposes all of your data. Did you know that? No, we just click, as I say, next, finish, right? And certainly from a Microsoft perspective, we were first out of the gate with a commercially available enterprise data security offering, which is Copilot, right? So people are like, well, what do I sell? I mean, at a minimum, start there. And we just announced some new bundles. I think we talked about that in our last video, where we greatly reduced the price for SMBs, which is where MSPs typically play. So there's kind of that basic fundamental, but then, right, now that you've done the basics, what's next? And I think you all were talking about like the internal use of AI for an MSP. And I look at it, when I talk to MSPs, I'll say, how many new customers could you onboard this year? I don't get anybody that raises their hand that says 15. I typically get maybe 2. And I always say, why? I'm like, we're really busy. We're thin, we're 20 people or 5, we're really busy. I'm like, what if AI could eliminate 60% of that business? Could you onboard 4 new customers, 5 new customers, right? Double your new customers, which is new revenue? And the answer is emphatically yes, but then they're like, well, how do I do that, right? And that's really where the key partnership with ConnectWise and leveraging our tools as well come into play. Is how do I help the MSPs be more efficient to generate more revenue, which is acquiring new customers? Because every MSP I meet says, I could grow faster if I could just acquire new customers, but I'm also too busy to acquire new customers, right? So there's the proactive, what do I sell to my existing customers? And then leveraging AI to be a more efficient MSP. Those two things, I think, are going to separate the frontier firms, as we like to call them, versus I'm still just an MSP.
No, that's great. I mean, one phrase that we like to use, and Martyn, you might have touched on this already, is the intelligence that actually acts, right? It actually does something. I know we're really excited. On Tuesday, we announced Sofric, our latest acquisition, really focused on that. Moving forward even further into that autonomous service, how do we help build agentic roles inside an MSP and leverage the information that we have in our PSA already to really get that efficiency? We're excited about that piece, but we see this move going forward. And one of the challenges we have is that as we're moving to this autonomous service, which again, will still leverage heavily our team, how do we find that economic side? How do we talk about that from an economic front? And Martyn, maybe you can help us understand how are MSPs really focusing on this conversation going forward, and knowing that a lot of their partners are expecting a price reduction when we have more automation built in, and that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those where MSPs shouldn't, like, I did a presentation actually back in November at IT Nation Connect, and right now, all the MSPs, they finally got a gist of like automation or what that looks like for them, and they're using it to great advantages. Well, now AI has come along and kind of like that meme where like the ghost is like pulling you away from what it is you're reaching for, the comfort zone, and AI is pulling you away from that. It's like, oh no, well, we've all been here before. So when I think of economics, it's obviously doing more with less, right? Obviously, and to Jason's point, you've got the MSPs who are going to be what you mentioned, like the frontier MSPs you mentioned. You'll get those where they're absolutely going to lead the way. And then I would even challenge those frontier MSPs to educate, communicate, like some of the tips and tricks that they are doing, to the greater community. For those who know me, obviously, I'm very big when it comes to community, right? Raising tide raises all ships and all that. But yeah, I think a lot of MSPs are going to double down with their AI efforts, or else they're going to have that feeling of, again, just being left behind, and they don't want that. So,
I'll throw my spicy take in here, which may not align with everyone, but
Good.
Over the years, right, we continually in the MSP industry adopt work, right? We take things into our world to help support our business partners. We look at the SaaS evolution of several years ago. That landed in our world significantly for security, for protection, I see a question about data loss prevention, which we'll touch on, but that whole world. We're going to continue to grow our footprint as an MSP industry, and we're going to need more people. We're going to need more tools, and we're going to be able to have to scale that. If we look at the work increasing by 20 to 30% over the next couple of years, we can't do that without more automation. So I see this scaling, this financial side of just focusing on what we're doing in addition to what we used to do, where we're growing the industry. I would say if we're just going to compete on a managed endpoint, those prices are going to start to struggle if that's all we're adding to the conversation. We have to really look beyond that and say, how are our partners leveraging AI? How are they leveraging business automation systems? And how can we help them? And Jason, I'm sure you see this kind of constantly in your world.
Yeah, it's really prevalent. And I actually think you potentially see, I have an example, I'm just looking at my screen over here, of end customers who will start moving faster than their MSPs. It's historically been the MSPs or the technology experts, and they're kind of dragging the end customer along into sort of their digital transformation. Well, these end customers are getting really savvy. These end customers are going to be frontier firms, right? We want frontier MSPs, but frontier firms. I mean, I got an email about a partner that was like, hey, I have an end customer that's trying to leverage Azure Foundry, right, with this closed loop, and I'm trying to actually help our support reps, but we have healthcare records. I don't know what to do. Can Microsoft do this? And I'm like, you need to do this, right? This is a post sales, right? This is a consultant opportunity. This could be something you could build managed services around, right? And so I'm like, you're either going to embrace and have that learn it all sort of mentality, you're going to pick your superpower, or, right, you're going to have to partner with somebody else, or that customer is going to leave you, right? More and more MSPs cannot do it all. The best MSPs that I talk to have a great P2P network. And that's what makes community, as you said, really important. I think community within the MSP world is going to be even more important with AI. You may have somebody that says, I'm really great at security. I'm really great at leveraging, say, Copilot within the modern workplace area. And somebody, I'm really great at making internal agents. I'm great at making external. I don't think anybody that's 5, 10, 15, 20 employees can do it all. Right. And so I think the partnering is going to be more important. And then, as we keep sort of harping on this, right, how is the MSP acting as customer zero, right? So MSPs with, oh yeah, I do the AI. And I'm like, you're doing it exactly how your end users are doing it. Why aren't you 4 steps ahead, right? You've always got to be on the cutting edge because that's your job as the technology advisor, the trusted advisor, right? And so what we're starting is AI is shrinking that gap where customers are starting to be smarter than their MSPs, right? And that's not a scenario that we want to be in. And so at Microsoft, and I know at Connect, we offer a gazillion trainings and webinars and boot camps and all that stuff. And I hear from partners, they're struggling to, well, where do I need to go? And I'm like, you pick your swim lane and get that to be your superpower. And those that are doing it are finding success.
I love that you said that, because it's one thing that we talk about probably not enough is we have to be in front of the problems our partners are having. We need to be the leaders in adopting these solutions and tools so that we can understand how they implement it and what the pitfalls and challenges are, so we can solve those, right? Martyn, we probably have maybe several owners or leaders of an MSP on here that are thinking, hey, I think we're in the game. I think we're doing pretty good on here, but how do I know that I really am attacking this in a manner that I should be in 2026?
Whew. So, as you know about me, I'm very pragmatic, very logical. So for me, it's metrics. And a lot of this is obviously, you've got the reality of, the actual job. Are my services working the way they should be? But then on the other side of it, you've got the human side of it, right? And that is something that you can basically kind of like keep your finger on the pulse with QBRs, or I've heard them called QBRs. Some businesses don't have the time to do them quarterly, so they call them TBRs, technical business reviews. But those are so important because it's not just, hey, I'm your MSP, this is what I'm doing for you, thank you. It's, hey, this is what I'm doing for you. Like, this is where, it's basically a nice time. It's like I'm not going to say a therapy session, but it's a nice check-in to where it's like, hey, I'm doing what I need to do for you. You're doing what you need to do for me. The relationship is healthy. Your business is growing. By the end of the year, you as a business want to accomplish X, Y, and Z. We as an MSP know that we aren't ready to get you to one of those points yet, but we are going to work on what we need to help you accomplish your goals. So it's very reciprocated. So like the MSP and the clients really help one another mature, as the business challenges are obviously forever changing for the customers or the clients. And again, it's communication that's going to be a massive driving factor behind all of this.
I love that you said metrics, because my answer to this is so much lamer than yours, right? When I'm saying, like, hey, how do they know that they're on track? And I would say, well, they actually have a plan. They have something that they've written down that they're executing on, that they're measuring their progress against. So maybe a little bit of metrics there, but they're actually attacking it. They're not just passively using it, hoping their teams are moving the ball forward. They're saying, we're going to make this a competitive advantage in our MSP. We're going to talk to our SMB partners about it and show them how automation, AI, and this autonomous service really benefits their business.
Yeah,
and I
and
compete at a higher level then.
yeah, and also like when you have this good relationship, it also gives the MSP and the client that little more space and a little bit more grace to like fail, right? Because you're not going to hit it right out of the park attempt number one. And if you are an MSP that continually does that, I want to know who you are. Like not many just get it right first time out of the gate. And especially now, because there's so many different ways of accomplishing the same thing, so many different tools, like back in the day, so many different ways to script a particular automation. It's okay to fail and work with your customer or your MSP to make it right, because at the end of the day, both businesses have their goals and each of them need one another to accomplish those.
So. No, that's great. And, it kind of shifts us to, there are some MSPs that probably haven't started the journey, or at least aren't where they maybe want to be right now. I look at Jason's comment. Thank you, Jason, for posting that, by the way. Appreciate that. And I'm going to summarize this quite a bit. Selling a closed loop LLM may not fix data loss prevention. So I think of this from an MSP perspective, Jason. Launching and selling a SKU or license to Copilot is great. Where I see MSPs kind of leading that charge and getting that kind of ground zero step is making sure the environment is ready and prepared. I'm sure you see this kind of on a day-to-day basis. How do they start, right?
Yeah, great question, right? And there's some simple ways to do it, right? Security is foundational to everything that we do. Sort of Secure the Future initiative, SFI. If you look that up, that's a Microsoft campaign, right? Secure by default. It's amazing how many MSPs that I'll talk to, and I'll be like, hey, how is your data governance, your customer? And they're like, our data governance is amazing. We lead with security. Like, so you're rolling out Copilot or other AI tools. They're like, we're not sure what it has access to. I'm like, you just told me you had a great data governance and security effort, but you're scared of AI because of you can't make those two statements. Right? It's like, I joke, it's like military intelligence, right? They don't go together, right? But that's really where, right? You look at, we provide, I don't want to talk SKUs, but we provide the right tools for MSPs in sort of simple areas, right? Things like Purview, right? You'll notice we have some incentives and some bundles where it's like Purview and Copilot. Why? Because you need that internal compliance, right? How do I make sure, right? From an audit perspective, e-discovery, how am I managing? I always say the people internally, and then there's the external piece. That's Defender. That's my simple brain, right? Defenders to keep the bad guys out, internals to keep your employees inside from doing bad things accidentally or potentially on purpose. But we provide some very simple basic tools that MSPs can embrace to kind of start on that journey versus, all right, we're all getting ready to download this AI tool. What do we think it's going to do? I don't know. And then they press the button, right? And it's that sort of hope strategy, right? So Jason, first of all, great name, right? Says that in the comments, right? Where it's not just Copilot. It's not just Business Premium. It's not just Entra, right? It's the MSP and how they bring that together, right? I ask lots of MSPs, right? What is your internal acceptable AI use policy? Have you written it down? Have you gotten together with your leadership team? This is how we think we can use AI. Once you've done that, you should ask that same question to your end user. Start there. Hey, we have a great acceptable use policy that we've written. We'd like to share it with you. Let's have that at the starting point, right? And then all of a sudden you can have that conversation versus your end user calls you and says, one of my employees downloaded something and I think it broke something, right? I mean, back to that rogue AI. So, I think it's paramount. I love Jason's the comments in there for MSPs to lead with security, lead with data governance, tell the truth, right? That there's bad things that are out there, prepare, right? And then start leveraging the right tools, right? Get on the front foot. Don't just say, oh, my end user downloaded XYZ. It worked, right? What are you doing? What tools are you leveraging? Why are you downloading that, right? Last thing I'll say, just kind of jokingly, right, is I'll remember the day when DeepSeek came out, right? I think we all remember, like, oh my gosh, they're going to kill everybody. Microsoft's going to go down and everybody's scared, right? And then all my friends were getting texts and they were all downloading it. And 2 weeks later, they're like, I don't really know where my data went. I downloaded it because I saw it on CNN, and then I don't know what it has access to. I'm like, well, the people that have your data know what it has access to, right? So starting from a secure foundation, right? I think that's where MSPs can actually show their technical chops and show, to your point, right, that they care about the customer, they're protecting the customer. And now let's go get, as I say, like all the fancy stuff that AI can do.
No, that's great. And I know we're getting really close to the end of the 30-minute time for this, but kind of one loaded question. And so I hope I'm not setting anybody up, but is there any mistakes that we could be making with AI in the near future that it would be hard to undo? I'm going to start off with saying, boy, this is shifting so fast, right? What we were doing using AI for maybe even 3 or 4 months ago is changing a little bit over time. I want to get your guys' opinion. Is there anything that we need to try to avoid, any pitfalls? Martyn, how about you?
I'm going to say, don't leave it to just 1 or 2 people in your business that knows everything. And I, again, technician, right, by trade, shall we say, back in the day, I was the hero tech. I was getting calls at 10 p.m. on a Friday, Sunday, whenever. And yes, I loved it because, hey, look at me, I'm a hero, but you get burnout. You just do. So my advice is to avoid a mistake, like something you're going to implement now. I would implement some form of like AI champions committee or group in the organization, and that has to be cross-functional. It can't just be the technician because, you know, he's the one or she is the one doing it. It has to be dispatch included. It has to be security absolutely included in that committee. A C-level individual or 2 included. So that way, if for whatever reason, you know, that person, those 1 or 2 individuals that you have positioned to be the AI guys in your organization, all of that domain knowledge doesn't leave as and when and if they do. So that would be my advice.
Jason, how about you? Any pitfalls we want to try to encapsulate in 30 seconds?
Yeah. I think there's 2 things. One, it's kind of one of my, I think it's on my LinkedIn, right? It's like people matter, but technology helps them. And I actually think now it's people matter, AI can really help them, right? So, you know, I don't think selling it, because initially, right, and you read all the things like, oh, it's going to replace humanity, or, you know, all the different things, right? People still matter. Relationships still matter. MSPs will always matter because we're humans, right? There is that connection. So frame it more of like, what can AI do for you, right? How can AI help you, right? I focus on that. I think the second thing is really that like AI doesn't instantly make you better. The right AI with the right training and the right support, the right committee, the right encouragement, the right, let's change our work culture. Because what we do see in some cases is people be like, I just bought a bunch of Copilot and I didn't sell as much last year. My employees must be bad at using AI. Shame on the employees. And the employees are going, no one told me how to use this. You just gave it to me, right? You know, that's like saying to me, hey, Jason, go dunk a basketball because I gave you a basketball. Like that's never going to happen, right? Because no one's training me. First of all, I can't do it anyways, but there's nobody there. There's no coach, right? To build off of your point, right? So the people matter, but I think MSPs have to go from like being reactive and just, hey, they bought something, to get on the front foot and maybe get in the training game. What are the tips and tricks? Hey, this is how we use it. It really is a groundswell. The way that I use AI is when I see my friends do something really cool and I go, how did you do that? And 2 minutes later, I'm able to do that. And now it's just part of my work life. It's not that I'm using AI. I'm just more productive, right? And so I think those are sort of the 2 simple things I think that, you know, people can avoid the pitfalls, but also take advantage of.
I love it. Well, we are at time. And I want to say for anybody on this right now, one of the things that we all have in common is ConnectWise, right? ConnectWise is here to help you along your AI journey. whether it's RPA, workflows in RMM, our security information and event management solution, managed detection and response. We're building AI and machine learning into all these platforms to help you scale your services. Microsoft, Jason, I know you guys are doing the same exact thing. And I want to thank you, Jason, for joining us. Martin and I will have different guests on every time.
Yep.
We're excited for the next session. And until then, thank you all very much, and we'll see you soon.
And I'll be in Houston, I think, for the IT Nation. So if anybody that's on this call or sees it, come up to me, say hi. I love to talk to humans.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. See you next time.